So we'll kick off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get everyone to do a quick introduction, sort of about themselves, what their fund looks to invest into. You've heard Wei Jie.
Cool. So I'm Lim from Singapore. I run two groups, ITF and Vision. We focus a lot on banking as a service as well as blockchain as a service. We cater mainly to the commerce, the finance, as well as e-government space around blockchain, AI, cybersecurity, and fintech. We typically invest in companies up to $6 million US dollars per investment, usually anywhere from early to mid-stage, usually around globally around the world, but specifically in the technology space. Thank you.
Paul.
So next one I want to go to is the structure of a deal. So, you don't have to mention specific terms or things like that, but just at a high level. If you're investing into a company, and this is for all five, if you're investing into a company, typically what percentage are you looking to invest? What sort of stake are you looking to take? Are you looking for a board position? And in the, I suppose that, because there's a courting phase, right, between both sides, between the value, you're positioning yourself as an investor, and then the company's positioning themselves to you. What sort of things do you like to, I suppose, hear from a company, and what things do you like to sort of explain about the way in which you add value?
So we take two different ends of it. It's usually a minority or a small majority. So it depends. If it's usually early stage.
Or acquisition.
Or usually it's acquisition. So if it's early stage and it's more, usually at early stage, usually we take a minority.
If it's early, are they generally friends of yours or well connected to you?
Most of our investments usually is through introduction so far. Okay. Or introduction through introduction, at least right now. And so it's usually early stage, or if it's a majority, it's usually a matured company, or usually because we will contribute to a massive amount of sales or massive amount of revenue of that business. And it's important that we make sure everything is running properly.
Cool. And in that session, one of the things we want to touch on is more of the softer side about what it's like actually doing business in Asia. And I think that's one of the hardest. For when I first went there, and I just gave this description yesterday, and I think you described it really well, Wei Mang, and also Wei Jie, you had a great description of this yesterday. One of the hardest things is it's very different for doing business in Australia. So for me, when I'm in Australia, I'm not the most social person, except for this week. This week, I am the party starter. We've got 6 different cocktail functions going on this week, right? Outside of that, I'm not the biggest fan of going to after-hours drinks or dinners or anything like that. The craziest thing is when I go to Singapore or if I'm going to any Asian country, suddenly I become someone different, right? Basically entertaining, drinking, and to me, it's a different way. So I think what I'd love for everyone to sort of, or just a couple of you to give a description on, Wei Jie, you had a great description yesterday on why drinking is such an important part of the process in doing business in Asia. And everyone laughs, but I tell you, it is just factual that it is.
Yeah, so I was just sharing, right? One of the things in Asia, very much, when you actually drink, one of the things is that if you actually drink, you're able to break down certain barriers very much quicker. I was just giving an example that's totally non-reflective of Singapore or Asia, but I was saying most of my deals that I do, whether it's sales or investments, almost all of them is done through drinks. And usually one person get drunk or both get drunk together as well, right? It's a matter of time. It's either earlier or later. And usually you get drunk a bit earlier, we know the outcome a bit faster. Are we going to invest or not going to invest? So I think one of the important things is that in the daytime, we go through all the important stuff like the documents, presentations, the financials. But for us, it's many a time, it's really to get to know the person as a person himself. And it's just when you talk about this kind of things, it's usually through drinks rather than a more formal session over the table. You talk about family and stuff like that. Just not a very appropriate setting, I guess. So when you start drinking more, I guess other things start coming out and you get to know the person a little bit more.
I suggest you do a medical check on a monthly basis.
That I agree as well, so yeah.
I've got another side to this. In fact, the reason we're in health is because when I come back, I've got to go on a severe diet. So in China, every bit of business is done over breakfast, lunch, dinner, and every other meal in between. So, it's just part of the social scene where, it's all about the key word is trust. And I think if you could eat with them, eat with the foods, and I'm vegetarian, so it's 10 times harder, but you got to sit around, and enjoy the food. And sure, there's the drinks, but you can make excuses with the alcohol. But I think that trust factor is number one. I think once you've got the trust factor, then it's a lot easier to think of the business side of things.
So I got asked the important question is, did I want Australian wine or Chinese liqueur? The only answer is Chinese liqueur.
No, it doesn't matter so long there's alcohol.
And it depends on who you drink with. They'll say just mix it and then.
So I think you guys have a JV
Yeah.
liquor store somewhere trying to push alcohol.
I think the philosophy I'd like to input, the simple way I break it down is, and Wei Jie just said it just then, is that the meeting during the daytime is the formal discussion. You know, everyone's got their business face on and all that sort of stuff. If you get invited to a dinner meeting, drinks, a function or something like that, that's when you know there's actually another opportunity on the horizon, or the real opportunity is on the horizon, because then it's about getting to know behind the person. So I think that's a quite important part. And look, as a final question, because I realise we've already just done 30 minutes, what tip for an Australian company or for an Australian investor going to Singapore, going to Hong Kong, going to China, what is the number one tip that you would give them, or as far as set an expectation, or what is the advice that you would give them in their, if they're looking to get a strategic investor or a partner in Asia?
Yeah, I think it's very important that, many a time it's about getting introduced to someone. And especially in Asia, if someone introduces you to someone, usually they're staking their reputation on the line to introduce you in. And if someone actually local or someone that knows someone, like in Singapore and Hong Kong and China, if they introduce you in, more often than not, you get a very much better introduction and the person feels a little bit closer to you because of the relationship of the person that's actually introduced you in. So at any point of time, if going in to like Singapore, Hong Kong, or China, you should find someone that you already know, or find someone that can introduce you in, giving you very much the huge head start. And I think that's one of Steve's most amazing thing, right? Because every time I come to an event, he'll always match me with a few people and always give a fantastic introduction. So always find someone that can introduce you in, because it just builds your relationship so much faster.
As a final note, just in finishing there, I was going to say a couple of things. So firstly, been really lucky to know, as I said, I've spent a lot of time with Vincent and more with Eric, founder, even before being a shareholder. He spent a lot of time just being a friend and a mentor to me in many different ways, right? And these guys do this without financial interest, because the relationship is just so important. Over the last, since September, we've had so many different conversations, drinking sessions, all that sort of stuff. And the value in which he's added to me is unbelievable. And then Wei Jie on a whole different level. I initially got introduced to him through one of his investors. And it's like, we know that we want to do, there's something between us we want to do together, and then it becomes about timing and then the opportunity. And then another person I just want to give a big thank you to is Ben, just sitting in the front row. I said, I've never spent so much time with Ben this task, and his partner Shasha, and they're the ones encouraging me to go to China. They're the ones pushing me to do more. And this is what's so nice about these guys, is they just don't look at you and think, what's there and that's it. They look at you, they've got a much more global perspective, and they encourage you to do more. They encourage you to be more. The common thing I'll always say to people is that whenever I'm with Wei Jie, I always feel like I'm lazy, because every time he gives me an update on what he's been doing, I'm just like, whatever I feel like I've done in that time just feels so insignificant compared to him.